The wind howled through the forest as rain hammered the ground. Searchlights flickered between trees, hope fading with every minute. A 7-year-old boy was missing and time was running out. Suddenly, a thunderous bark shattered the darkness. Officer Luke spun around. His K9 partner Thor had caught something no one else could. Before we start, make sure to hit like and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. The small mountain town of Clearwater was drowning in panic. The storm had rolled in fast, sheets of rain, roaring thunder, and winds that ripped through the forest like angry spirits. Somewhere in that chaos, 7-year-old Ethan Parker had vanished. His mother's frantic voice echoed through the police radio, trembling with fear. He was playing in the backyard. Then he was just gone. By the time the search teams gathered, night was closing in. Flashlights danced between the trees, illuminating nothing but rain and shadows. Every minute felt heavier than the last. Officers shouted Ethan's name, their voices swallowed by the storm. Then a familiar sound cut through the chaos, the sharp bark of a German shepherd. Officer Luke stepped forward, gripping Thor's leash tightly. His expression was grim but steady. "All right, boy," he whispered. "Let's bring him home." Thor's ears twitched. The hunt had begun. Thor wasn't just any dog, he was born for moments like this. From the time he was a pup, he had been trained to track scents through storms, smoke, and chaos. Every command, every search drill, every rescue mission had shaped him into the force he was now. His nose could trace a single scent across miles, through rain, mud, even fear itself. Officer Luke remembered their first training day together. How Thor refused to quit until he found the hidden target. "You've got more heart than most people I know," Luke had said back then, smiling. Since that day, they'd become more than partners. They were brothers in every mission. Now, standing at the forest's edge, Luke pulled a small, soaked jacket from a plastic bag, the one Ethan had been wearing earlier. Thor sniffed it once, his eyes narrowing. Then, with a low growl, he turned toward the woods. The chase was on. Thor darted into the forest, muscles rippling beneath his soaked fur. The beam of Luke's flashlight followed closely behind, cutting through the sheets of rain. The storm had turned the ground into a maze of mud and tangled roots. But Thor didn't hesitate. He was locked in on the scent. Branches whipped against Luke's arms as he pushed forward, shouting orders to the search team behind him. "Stay close. Watch your footing." Their radios crackled, their breath visible in the cold air. Every few seconds, Thor barked, short, urgent bursts that echoed through the trees like beacons of hope. The deeper they went, the darker it became. The forest seemed endless, alive with the roar of thunder. Then Thor suddenly stopped, nose pressed to the ground. He growled low, tail stiff. Luke's heart pounded. "What is it, boy?" Thor sniffed again, then bolted left, dragging Luke through thick underbrush. The trail was fresh. Ethan had been here. Luke's pulse quickened. Somewhere ahead, through the rain and shadows, a child was waiting to be found, and Thor wasn't about to let him down. Thor stopped suddenly at the edge of a rushing creek, his paws splashing in the icy water. He paced in circles, nose low, barking in sharp bursts. Luke knelt beside him, sweeping his flashlight over the ground, and froze. Half buried in the mud was a tiny sneaker, blue with a cartoon rocket on the side. "Ethan," Luke breathed, his throat tightening. He picked it up carefully, his heart hammering. "Good boy, Thor, we're close." But then Thor began to whine, sniffing frantically along the creek's edge. The rain had washed away the trail. The scent was gone. Luke's stomach sank as thunder cracked above them. He glanced at his watch. Hours had passed, and the temperature was dropping fast. "Come on, buddy," he urged softly, running a trembling hand through Thor's wet fur. "Don't lose him now." Thor lifted his head, ears twitching, then suddenly froze, eyes fixed deeper into the woods. In a flash of lightning, Thor's ears shot up. He stood perfectly still, nose flaring, body tense like a drawn bow. Then, without warning, he lunged forward, splashing through the creek and racing uphill. "Thor, wait!" Luke shouted, stumbling after him, branches clawing at his jacket. The other officers followed, beams of light bouncing wildly through the rain. Thor didn't slow. His instincts were screaming louder than the storm. They broke through a wall of wet leaves, and Luke saw him barking frantically near a fallen tree at the edge of a ravine. His heart pounded as he raised his flashlight, then froze. Beneath the twisted branches, half hidden under mud and leaves, was a small hand. "Ethan!" Luke shouted, dropping to his knees. The boy was there, pale, soaked, trembling, but alive. Thor pressed close, licking his face gently, whining as if urging him to stay awake. Luke's voice cracked over the radio. "We found him. I repeat, we've got the boy." Thunder rolled across the sky, but for the first time that night, the storm didn't sound frightening. It sounded like relief. Thor sat beside Ethan, tail low, eyes soft. He wasn't fierce now. He was a guardian. Luke's heart raced as he pressed 2 fingers gently to Ethan's neck. A faint pulse, weak but there. "He's alive!" he shouted over the roar of the rain. Relief swept through the team, but there was no time to celebrate. The ravine was slick, the mud unstable. "One wrong move could send them all tumbling. Get me a rescue line," Luke barked. Within seconds, ropes were anchored to nearby trees. 2 officers formed a human chain as Luke carefully lifted Ethan into his arms. Thor stayed inches away, growling at every rumble of thunder as if warning the storm itself to back off. As they climbed back up, a flash of lightning illuminated the boy's pale face. He stirred slightly, lips trembling. "Doggy, saved me," he whispered. The words barely left his mouth, but they struck every heart on that hill. Paramedics rushed in as soon as they reached the clearing, wrapping Ethan in thermal blankets and checking his vitals. Luke stood back, drenched and shaking, his hand resting on Thor's head. The German shepherd's tail thumped weakly in the mud, his eyes locked on the boy being carried away. He'd found him. His mission was complete. Hours later, the rain had stopped, leaving the world silent and heavy with relief. At Clearwater General Hospital, the bright hallway lights replaced the darkness of the forest. Ethan lay in a hospital bed wrapped in blankets, color slowly returning to his cheeks. His parents stood by his side, tears streaming down their faces as they thanked every officer in sight. When Luke entered with Thor, the room went still. The boy's mother covered her mouth, sobbing softly. "That's him," she whispered. "That's the dog who saved my son." Thor padded quietly to the bedside, resting his head on the edge of the mattress. Ethan's small hand reached out, brushing his fur. "Hi, buddy," he murmured weakly. A doctor turned to Luke, shaking his head in disbelief. "Another hour out there and we'd be telling a different story," he said. "Your dog didn't just find him. He gave him a second chance." Days later, the sun finally broke through the clouds, painting the town in gold. Outside the station, Thor lay peacefully beside Luke, a shiny metal glinting on his collar. Cameras flashed, reporters praised, but Thor didn't care for the spotlight. His mission had been simple: protect, find, save. As the Parker family arrived, little Ethan ran forward, wrapping his arms around Thor's neck. The German shepherd leaned into the hug, tail wagging gently. Luke smiled, voice soft. "Sometimes," he said, "the bravest hearts don't speak. They just act." If this story touched you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real-life miracles like this one.